This X post says 10 GitHub repos can cut Claude Code token usage by as much as 90%. But the post itself is not a live demo. It is just a set of repo cards. So instead of repeating the hype, I checked the official repo pages, docs, benchmark pages, and product sites behind it. The good news is, there is something real here. The better framing is that these projects attack token waste at different layers. Some compress noisy CLI output. Some move big tool results out of the chat entirely. Some build a searchable map of your codebase so the model does not keep reopening whole files. And a few are really just startup hygiene and response discipline. If you use Claude Code, Codex, Gemini CLI, or another local coding setup, this is the grounded version of what the roundup is actually showing. First, the problem. Token waste usually does not come from one giant prompt. It comes from repetition. A tool dumps 50 or 60 kilobytes of JSON into the conversation. The model gets that same payload sent back on the next turn, and the turn after that, and the turn after that. Then the agent reads too many files inline, or pastes test logs, or keeps long command output in memory when all it really needed was the summary. Once the context window gets packed, the session compacts, the model forgets details, and you spend time re-establishing state. There is also startup bloat. Some setups load way too many docs and project files before any real work begins. And then there is plain output verbosity, where the model says 3 paragraphs when 6 lines would do. So keep this mental model in mind. This roundup is not one category. It is 5 categories hiding inside one viral post. The most immediately credible compression tools in the list are RTK and Context Mode. RTK is a Rust CLI proxy that sits in front of noisy terminal commands. On its official site, the hero numbers show 2,927 commands processed, 11.6 million input tokens, 1.4 million output tokens, and 10.3 million saved, about 89%. The README also shows command-level wins like git add, git commit, and cargo test landing around 90% savings. The nice part is how simple the workflow looks. Install RTK, run RTK init-g, and then normal shell commands get rewritten to leaner versions. The catch is important. That rewrite flow works for bash tool calls, not Claude's built-in read, grep, or glob. Context mode goes after a different leak. Instead of letting giant tool outputs flood the conversation, it sandboxes them, writes the raw data into SQLite, and only passes back a short summary. The official site is full of hard before and after numbers, like 315 kilobytes down to 5.4, or a playwright snapshot going from 56 kilobytes to a few hundred bytes. It also has a local analytics surface called CTX Insight and an official YouTube demo. So RTK is the strongest pick when your waste is terminal noise. Context mode is stronger when your waste is oversized tool output and lost session continuity. The next class of tools is smarter retrieval. Instead of trying to remember the whole codebase, these repos build structure around it. Code Review Graph is the cleanest visual example. Its diagrams show blast radius analysis, monorepo funnels, and a benchmark board. The README claims 8.2 times average token reduction across 6 open-source repos and 13 commits, plus less than 2-second incremental reindexing on a large project. That is a strong story because the visuals match the pitch. Token Savior pushes this even harder. Its benchmark site compares the same model across 90 real coding tasks and reports 98.9% task success versus 66.7% for plain Claude Code, with lower active tokens and much shorter runtime. That is a big claim, so I would still present it as benchmark page evidence, not universal truth. Claude Context from Zillize is the most enterprise-shaped version of the same idea. It uses semantic retrieval over an indexed vector database, and its evaluation pages claim about 39% fewer tokens and about 36% fewer tool calls on a 30-issue SW bench verified run, while holding average F1 steady. The practical takeaway is simple. If your biggest problem is not noisy shell output, but the cost of reopening code, retrieval beats brute force. These tools are trying to make the model ask for the right slice instead of the whole repo. Then there is the lightweight layer, the stuff that does not need a full indexing system to help. Caveman is the weird one, but it is not empty theater. The README shows a before and after where a normal answer uses 69 tokens and the caveman version uses 19, and the benchmark table averages about 65% savings across 10 tasks. Claude Token Efficient is even more minimal. It is basically one claude.md file that pushes the model toward short, direct output. The repo is careful about its own limits, which I like. It calls the benchmark directional, not definitive, and shows a small 5-prompt test with about 63% reduction. Claude Token Optimizer is about startup hygiene. Instead of stuffing the session with a whole tree of docs, it tries to get startup load down to a few essential files, with the README showing an 8,000 token start collapsing to around 800. Token Optimizer MCP adds cache and compression logic at the hook layer, and its own verification doc shows examples like 1,250 tokens down to 85 on a cache hit path. These are the easiest repos to try, but they're also the ones where the marketing numbers deserve the most caution. Think of them as practical trims, not magic. If you want the most visually convincing repo in the whole roundup, it is probably Alex Greenshaw's Token Optimizer. Not because the headline percentages are the biggest, but because it actually ships a local dashboard, quality diagrams, and measurement surfaces that show where token waste is coming from. The repo has a dashboard overview, a real savings chart, a status bar, and diagrams for delta mode, compaction quality, and bash compression. That matters because token reduction without quality tracking can become self-sabotage. Saving tokens is easy if you just starve the model. Saving tokens while keeping the right context is the hard part. So my practical stack recommendation would be layered. If your sessions drown in shell noise, start with RTK. If your tools dump massive outputs into the chat, add context mode. If your repo is large and retrieval is the real problem, test code review graph or Claude Context. And if you just need faster wins, add a minimal claude.md profile and tighten the output style. The one thing I would not do is believe every 90% number at face value. Some of these are repo benchmarks, some are site claims, and some are one author's internal test harness. Useful, yes. Equal, no. So the roundup is real, but the strongest version of it is more specific than the post makes it sound. Token savings are not one trick. They come from compression, retrieval, continuity, startup discipline, and shorter responses. If you run local coding agents, whether that is Claude Code, Codex, Gemini CLI, or OpenClaw, the best move is to stack the category that matches your actual bottleneck instead of chasing the biggest percentage on social media. The source post, the repo links, and the official benchmark pages are all in the description. Save the thread if you want the full list. But if you only test a few, start with the tools that show their work.